Get started. Hello and welcome to our webinar. The reason we decided to cover this topic today, how to get your marketing strategy Brexit ready, is because the recent referendum results may have come as a bit of a shock to some people. They certainly came as a shock to me and my business, a lot of my clients. Not so much the decision to leave the EU, but some of those immediate shock waves that emanated from the results. And I think for a week or so, there seemed to be one big shock to deal with after another. And often when something like this happens, it throws businesses into a feeling of uncertainty, that they're not too sure what the future holds for them, and that they're not sure if the strategies and the plans that they had created for their business are still robust, they're still going to be relevant for them. So I felt that rather than dwell on the negatives or be too optimistic, too sort of blinkered about this, perhaps it would be more valuable for businesses to start thinking about a range of options, a range of alternative futures, because let's face it, at the moment, it is all unclear. And it's probably not going to be clear for at least 6 months, certainly the direction that our UK government is going to take. But also long term, it isn't clear where we will be trading, how we will be trading, what those relationships will be. And even if you have a little tiny business, you're just working locally, it is still going to affect everybody. So that's the purpose of today's webinar. It's just to expand people's thinking and to have a chance to perhaps look at some of the positives, some of the benefits that this may actually bring, and also where to go to find that hardcore data, the proper solid information that you need in order to make these big key decisions. Great. So this is what I'd like to cover with you today. It's a slightly longer webinar than we usually do, but we're going to be looking at managing uncertainty. Now, nothing ever stays the same forever. The business world is always changing, and depending on the sector that you work in, you'll have been dealing with major changes in recent years anyway. But it's how do you manage uncertainty, both psychologically and also strategically, when you're kind of working in uncharted territory. Then we'll have a little look at how to choose your marketing strategy. There are many different approaches to strategic development, but I'll just take you through a few. Then we'll go through how to develop your marketing strategy. This might be something that's very, very familiar to you. If you've worked at director level, senior management level, you'll have done this many times before, but it may be new to you. So for those of you for whom it is new, I'll try to take you through it in as user-friendly a way as possible. But really, a lot of your marketing strategy, a lot of the work, the time is dedicated to the research part. Looking at the world around your business, far away and closer to home. And also trying to find out where the good sources of information lie, reliable sources of information, and also working out what you need to know in order to make those key decisions for the future. We'll talk a little bit about research, because obviously the first page of Google is full of what is the most popular or the most well-optimized content, the best optimized content. That's the way that Google works. But often you need to dig a bit further, you need to dig a bit deeper, you might need to use some other tools. There are plenty of online tools, but there are also some great offline tools. So I'm going to take you through that a bit as well, because I think if you have access to a broader range of data, you will feel more confident about some of those long-term decisions that you make. And then I want to take you through a very, very different way of approaching strategy, strategic flexibility. Now, this is a strategic approach that's championed by Michael Rayner in his book, The Strategy Paradox. And what I'm going to try and do is make it as user-friendly for you as possible, because the book is excellent, but it's quite heavy duty. And also a lot of his case studies would be about, big corporations. But you know what, if you're a little business, which is what most of my clients are, most of my associates are, if you're a smaller business, if you're an SME, chances are you can be a lot more flexible, a lot more adaptable than some of the bigger players in your industry. And then finally, we'll have a quick recap. So I hope that's a really useful agenda for you today, and we'll get cracking. So in his book, The Strategy Paradox, Michael Rayner spent a long time researching why some businesses, even though they had followed a really strong strategy, a really robust strategy, why it didn't work for them. And I think his conclusion really was that, a lot of the time the sands shift around you, things that you couldn't have foreseen, and your strategy wasn't going to be good enough. It wasn't going to take you through that journey, possibly because it wasn't going to be flexible enough. You see, often in order to succeed, you have to go out on a limb. You have to sort of put all of your resources, absolutely everything, into following that one key strategy or that one key path. But you know what, if a competitor comes out with something that changes your marketplace, there's not an awful lot that you can do about it. So, this is the strategy paradox, that strategies with the greatest possibility of success also have the greatest possibility of failure. So how do we manage that uncertainty? Well, his advice is to start looking at a range of strategies, a range of options for your business. Beyond just scribbling on the back of an envelope, really thinking about what you're going to need to have in place in order to follow those. And with the bigger corporations, what they'll do is they will set up fully fledged divisions ready to go on those strategies. For a smaller business, that may not be so easy. However, if you regularly work with perhaps freelancers or associates or consultants, you have flexible resources, possibly even a flexible workforce, then it may well be a route that you can follow. Anyway, I'll take you through it later on. So, what is a strategy? Well, there are many ways of looking at strategy. Strategy isn't really a plan, and I think that's when people really get themselves a bit muddled. A strategy is a specific way of succeeding. It's a specific route that you're going to follow, a path to the future of your business, rather than a plan. A plan is a set of actions that you will take in order to achieve part of your strategy, but it isn't that long-term vision and that long-term sort of set of objectives for your business or your organization. So basically, when is a strategy not a strategy? Well, it's when it's a plan. And I often work with businesses who are looking to develop their marketing strategy. Ideally, it supports the overall business strategy. Occasionally, that business strategy isn't fully developed, and so the marketing strategy is what actually drives those organizations. But it is a common misconception, this misunderstanding between strategy and planning. But really, strategy is going up to the top of the tallest tower. Ideally, you are up in a helicopter. You can see as far and as wide around your business as possible. You can see to the furthest horizons, and you're looking to see what is coming towards your business, what is marching towards you that could derail things. Because you know what? It buys you time. And it buys you time to find the money that you're going to need, to find the people that you're going to need, the skills you'll need, possibly even machinery and equipment, or strategic partners that you're going to need. So that's how strategy differs from planning. Planning is a set of actions. Typically, a plan might be something that you're going to do in the next 2, 3, 4 months. So there are a few different types of competitive marketing strategy. So you might have a build strategy. You see an opportunity, things are looking good. You perhaps want to develop a new product range, new service range, or you're looking at a neighboring market, a new marketplace, thinking that it's looking attractive. So that would be a build strategy where you're planning to expand your business, you're planning to grow. This is the kind of strategy that you would follow in what feels to you like good times, when the economy's doing well, or even the economy in an overseas country that you trade with is doing well. That is when you might be building. A hold strategy is probably what most businesses would follow in times of recession, or if your industry is shrinking in some way, perhaps there's been some major change where everybody's had to sort of sit on their hands for a while. For example, the price of oil, a barrel of crude dropped through the floor last summer. And so if you're in oil and gas, you've had a tough time. If you're in oil and gas exploration, you've probably been out of work for the last year. So most businesses then would have a hold strategy. You're looking to survive, you're looking to get through the hard times. But you know what, a hold strategy, it's not a long-term strategy, really. And it's not one that I would be recommending businesses pursue at the moment either. It's better to be looking for the opportunities and moving towards realizing those opportunities, rather than just sort of hiding in the bunker and hoping that it will all go away. Because there'll be others out there who are thinking, you know what, let's see what opportunity we can find here. And then when you do finally emerge in 6 months' time or a year's time, they'll already be doing well in this new changed set of circumstances. A niche strategy is where you look to achieve excellence, either for a particular service that you offer or a particular product that you create, that you manufacture. So that's a niche. You're aiming to be the very best in your industry, but niches are, by their very nature, they're small. If you're a niche business, you may also find that it's difficult to adapt. It's difficult to be flexible in times of great change, unless you have perhaps part of your business, or perhaps one of the options that you explore for your business is to create a niche for you. Harvesting. Harvesting is what we do when we feel that something might be coming to the end of its natural lifespan. Could be a product, could be a service, it could even be a current customer group that you serve, or a current target customer group that you serve, or a current segment. And you've got a pretty good idea that this isn't going to last forever. So you're going to maximize your returns on any investments that you've already put into that space, but you're looking to diversify in the future. And then finally, divest. So divest will be where you know that you have in your product or service portfolio, you have aspects that just aren't really working for you anymore. They have reaped all of the returns on investment, and it's ready to, you're ready to move on. You're ready to leave that behind. Now, divestment can often mean that that's a division that you sell, or you might spin it out to a group of your employees who want to do an MBO, management buyout, or something like that. But that's a divest strategy. So those are the kind of the sort of 4 or 5 main positions that you might take when you're thinking about competitive marketing strategies. But I will encourage you to think more broadly than this for the future of your business. So how is strategy developed? Well, the very first stage in any kind of strategic development is what we call situation analysis, which is a really posh way of saying, where are we now? What is going on at the moment? And what are we hoping to achieve in the long term and in the near term? Okay, so where are we now? Now, your business has a series of worlds that live around it. You have varying degrees of influence on those worlds. Some of those worlds only have influence on you. So we have the macro environment, the micro environment, and then the internal environment. Now, I'll explain what all of those things mean. Now, at the moment, for most of us post-Brexit, we're looking at what's happening in this macro environment. So, for example, we have massive political change. Here in the UK, we have a new Prime Minister. There have been major changes in all of the political parties. We're looking at a very different set of relationships, geopolitical relationships going forward, both with our European colleagues and also with the wider world. So that political environment is changing dramatically. But political is also about policy, so government policy is going to change. On the legal side of things, a percentage of our laws have come from the EU. A lot of those will have to be rewritten. They'll have to be taken through Parliament, the House of Lords, and will have to be rewritten. So we can expect a change in the legal landscape as well. Both of these things may in time present your business, your organization with opportunities. These aren't just threats. Economic, obviously, we're looking at a drop in the value of the pound against key currencies. That may be a long-term drop, that may be a temporary drop, but currently it presents obviously the fact that some imports are going to be more expensive. We may see an increase in the price of petrol at the pump. However, if you are in a position to export either goods or services, then a weaker pound may increase exports for you. It may increase sales from other markets overseas. So there may be an opportunity in there for your organization or your business. If you feel that your organization is kind of geographically limited, then this might be the time to start thinking about what you do that could be packaged in some way and could be provided or sold to people overseas via the internet. This is certainly something that a lot of service businesses will do, and it's the opportunity to develop new income streams, but also to increase the number of baskets that your eggs are in, should we say. Environmental aspects of the macro environment would be things like the ecology. It could be things around emissions, or it could be waste disposal, even things like air pollution. Now, we can expect to see a big change in the sort of environmental law because a lot of our current laws come from the EU. Again, this may present your business or your organization with opportunities. This could be a space where people need consultancy. They might need advice as to how they operate in the future. Social changes and technological changes. So social changes would be society at large. It would be people's attitudes, people's values. It's possibly fair to say, I hope I won't offend anybody by saying this, but it's possibly fair to say that the result of the referendum was in response to a social movement. It was clearly in response to how society, or the majority of society, was feeling about our membership of the EU and what that entailed, because any membership has a trade-off. We obviously had benefits from being in the EU, but there was also a price to pay. And clearly, for the majority of people, the feeling was that the price was too high. So that's a massive social change. That's a massive social impact on your business. But social can also include things like values, people's attitudes towards religion, race, gender, sexuality, even people's relationship towards charitable giving, certainly people's attitudes towards social media, what people share on social media, and their behavior, that sort of public-private interface. So social changes as well. Finally, technological is hardware as well as software. Technology is also machinery. It isn't just a social media platform or Microsoft Cloud or something like that. It has a much broader interpretation. And technology may, in fact, be hugely empowering for you in the coming months, because a lot of the information that you will need to gather in order to plan this future for your business will be available to you online, both through your own computer, but also perhaps through the local library or through sort of business databases as well. So there we have the macro environment. We call it PESTEL. Now, where are you going to go to get information about this? Because what we've seen in recent weeks, perhaps in recent months, is that we have strong views in the media. We have strong opinion in the media. We don't necessarily have hard facts and figures. And if you're planning the future of your business, you may prefer to go and base those decisions on really hard data. So where are you going to find that kind of stuff? Well, great sources of what we would call sort of secondary data, the stuff that's already out in the public domain, would be things like government departments, government websites, because that's where a lot of the statistical data sits. Things like the Office for National Statistics, excellent source of information. But also the various ministries have their own websites as well. And this is empirical data, as in facts and figures based on statistics, based on research. And it should be fairly unbiased, okay? So that might be a good place to start. If you're looking for legal information, you may want to look outside of the EU. You might want to be looking at legislation in overseas markets that you're working with, but certainly keeping an ear to the ground for changes in the law, changes in legislation will be very important for you. Think about where you get that information from at the moment, and make sure that you've set up good sources for the future. In terms of the economy, on a national scale, certainly government databases, government websites will be a good source. But perhaps even things like the Financial Times, The Economist. The Economist, as well as being a magazine, has a research department, a research division, and they have solid statistical data on all the economies of the world, including the UK economy. So The Economist may be a good source of information for you as well. Your local economy, you might want to contact the CBI, you might want to contact your local Chamber of Commerce, because they will have a finger on the pulse as to what's going on locally, both in terms of how people are reporting back on sort of state of the nation, but also on opportunities that they're seeing arising. Okay, so that's the macro environment. So that's this big wide world around you. Now, you don't have a lot of influence over this unless you're, BP or the NHS or a really big organization. You're mostly going to be feeling the impact of changes in this world. But going out and finding the real hard factual data to help you build your strategy is going to be essential for you. The microenvironment sits closer to home, and that's where your customers, your competitors, your suppliers, and what I call other routes to market sit. So in terms of your competitors, you're all basically swimming in the same pond. You're all going to be dealing with the same set of circumstances. And how well you do probably is going to depend largely on how well you maximize the opportunities that do come out of the changes in the next few years. So what kind of information do you want to know about your competitors? Well, or even a target market that you're thinking of moving into, because you may be looking at your current marketplace, your current customers, and thinking, not sure what's going to happen with this. Remember what the recession was like. these people, this target customer group, didn't really invest in the things that we do. They didn't spend money on the things that we do in that time. So where else might we be looking? So the kinds of things to know about customers and markets is things like, how big is that market? Are there any gaps in the market? Niches that you could occupy, spaces that you could fill? If there is competition, how strong is it? How aggressive is it? Because sometimes what you find when you're looking to enter a new market is that really it's a fairly closed shop. You have a few big players, and there isn't really much space for new players in that space. You might also find that the entry costs or the entry requirements to that market are set really high. So for example, in terms of qualifications, it could be in terms of the setup of your business, machinery, capital investment, even IT, and licensing and all that kind of thing. These could be barriers to entry. You might also want to look at what the trends are for that market. Is it growing? Is it in decline? Is it aging? Is it getting younger? Because that will tell you a great deal about how you're going to plan your approach to that marketplace. Are there trade associations that serve that market? Are there trade associations that serve your sector? Because they can often help you, and they can be a terrific source of information. So, how does that industry operate? And what are the major events or trade shows that take place? Because that's a really good place to go and maybe walk the floor, talk to as many people as you can, and start getting information about, little gaps and where you might be able to fit in, or even big gaps, and players who might be looking for skills, possibly even key personnel that you have in your company that they don't have, and you might have an opportunity to collaborate with them. And many of my clients, when we start looking more closely at their competitors, discover that they're very different to each other, or they're sufficiently different that not only can they coexist in that marketplace, but actually there's often an incentive to build a relationship with them, a working relationship with them, sometimes even strategic alliances with them, because you're stronger together. You can provide a better product or service to the customer. And I think in the next few years, a lot of businesses will be looking at competitors, current competitors, and thinking, okay, how could we perhaps join forces with each other in order to make the most of any opportunities that arise? How do we protect ourselves from any potential threats that come along? So other routes to market, those could be intermediaries. They could be strategic partnerships. We tend to call them marketing intermediaries if we're getting fancy in marketing, but it's really who sits between you and the customer. Do you sell direct? Do you sell through a whole supply chain? If somebody key in your supply chain goes, how is that going to affect your business? What will the knock-on effects be? Because in recent years, we've seen a big decrease in public sector spending, public sector funding. So a lot of businesses who had a really big public sector client portfolio found themselves in real trouble very quickly, and found that, as the cuts came in, so did their revenue. They've had to diversify. They've had to find customers in other sectors, and for some of them, it's taken them a while to do so. But if you're in an existing supply chain, how are you going to find alternative routes to market? Can you perhaps be working in a supply chain that's overseas in a growing economy? Or are there modifications that you can make to your products and services that actually you could go into another marketplace? Finally, your customers. What's happening with your customer base? Are you business to business? Are you business to consumer? How much do you know about them? How close to them are you? Are you listening to them? Are you listening to feedback? because I would put forward that at a time like this, when there is a fair degree of uncertainty and where you may be looking to develop alternative strategies, you need to have your customers in mind. You need to have your current customers and also those that you think are going to be your target customers of the future. How much research have you done? How much have you looked at them? Because there is a huge wealth of consumer data online and in your local library as well, through the if you have a sort of business section within your local library, there'll be researchers there who can help you find all sorts of information. You might want to work with one of the local universities and perhaps get some research done for you on how customers operate, consumers operate. But you need to know what people are interested in. You need to know what they're going to buy now and in the future. And you need to have thought about how changes in the economy, how they could affect your customers and their propensity to spend. So these are various areas of research that will help you to sort of not only map the future you think your business is going to have, but when we come to talk about expanding into other scenarios, might even present some other scenarios to map out more fully. So that's your micro environments. It's close to your business. And then the next bit, obviously, is you. I won't spend too much time on this section, but I'll just talk you through those main elements. The strategy helps you to plan. It helps you to decide what resources you're going to need for your business now and in the future. And it also helps you to decide how you're going to devote time and resources to the marketing mix, the 7 Ps. So I'll talk about the 5 Ms first. It's just a nice, useful way of remembering what your resources are. So you have manpower, you have machinery, materials, you have minutes, and you have money. And those are the 5 main ingredients, basically, for any business. So those are your main resources. The 7 Ps is the kind of extended mix, but the basic 4 Ps of marketing have always been the same. So it's your products or services, the price that you're charging, the way that you promote your products and services, and place. Where are your goods and services available to be bought? Now, traditionally, that would have been retail, it would have been face-to-face. Increasingly, it's online. And increasingly, the product might be a virtual product, might not actually be a physical product, which does open up far greater possibilities to a business if that's an option for them. So those are the 4 Ps. Then we have the extended marketing mix, which takes into account things like service businesses. So there you would be looking at physical evidence. So that's, what was the experience like for somebody? How happy were they with your services when they arrived? People are a really important part of that, because customer services, your sales team, any customer-facing staff will have a massive impact on how happy the customer is. And then we have your processes. When somebody enters your sort of sales pipeline, or depending on the terminology that you're using, but when somebody enters your sales pipeline, what's the journey like for them? What is the process like for them? Is it something that was enjoyable? Is it something that has them gnashing their teeth? So those are the 7 Ps. And then finally, your brand. And your brand is made up of design elements and colors and what your brand looks like, but it's also about the core vision of the business, your core values, all those really important things that you stand for. And a strong brand can actually take you through good times as well as bad. So sometimes brand is a thing to revisit in periods of uncertainty. So this is the kind of shakedown. This is where everything sits. We put things into what we call a SWOT analysis: strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So your strengths and weaknesses will be largely dictated by you as a business. So how well are you doing what you do? Those are your strengths. Your weaknesses might come from your near environment, because a weakness might be something that's perceived by a customer, or it could be you feel you're a little weaker than a competitor on a certain aspect. So your weaknesses are things that are holding you back in your marketplace. But that larger, wider macro environment is where opportunities and threats come from. And sometimes it's not easy at first to see whether something is going to provide you with an opportunity or a threat. But today's webinar is really about helping you find and seek out the opportunities, even in the things that are currently looking uncertain, currently looking a bit threatening, shall we say. That there could well be opportunities for your business or organization in the short to long term. Okay, so do big macro changes offer new possibilities for you? Could they alter or remove one of your key markets? Okay, so the next thing that you need to decide is objectives, goals for your organization. So in this section, we think about which dial do you want to move? What are you looking to change? So that could be looking at new products, new services, new markets, diversification. And I'm just going to talk you very briefly through something called the Ansoff Growth Matrix. Now, Igor Ansoff was a mathematician, but he was also a kind of business strategist. And he's considered to be the father of business strategy. But essentially, you have a sort of a range of directions in which your business can move, either representing new customers, new target markets, or new products and services, either serving existing markets or new markets. I'll just draw your attention briefly to that bottom right-hand corner, highest risk, because this is where often where a lot of startups fail. But sometimes even more established businesses, if they have a portfolio of products and services, this might be the one where they, take a bit of a punt, go after a new market with a new product and see how well it does. Obviously, risk can also bring the highest returns. So if you were somebody like Apple, who were looking at the iPhone, it wasn't necessarily a new customer, a new consumer, but it was certainly a totally new product. Nobody had ever seen anything like that before, the smartphone. So with great risk sometimes comes great return. But I wouldn't necessarily advocate having a strategy that's just around introducing a brand new product or service to a totally new market. Because the trouble is, nobody's heard of you. They don't know if you're any good, and they don't know if what you do is any good. So that's the Ansoff matrix. Most of us will be probably sitting in the green box, thinking about lowest risk. We'll be looking to sell more of what we already do to people who are like the customers that we already have. And for many businesses, that's a strategy that will take them through their entire lifetime. Product development would be looking at, you think your customers might be ready for a change, or you see an opportunity to develop and diversify into new products for that existing market, that existing customer base. Some of you who are concerned about how uncertainty will affect your current markets might be looking to do just this. You might be looking to diversify what you do for the people that you're currently connected to, who are current customers of yours. This has many advantages because you're already a known quantity to them. A lot of trust is already there. There's an existing relationship. And then the bottom left-hand corner, this market development. This might be if you sense that your market is disappearing, is declining in some way, is changing in some way, but you're really happy with your products and services, you're really confident about them, and you feel that there are other markets for those elsewhere. So for example, if you are in a position to export at the moment, or could be in a position to export a physical product or a virtual product or your services, now at the moment would be a good time to look into this. With a weaker pound, there could be opportunities for you overseas. So that is the Ansoff growth matrix. So which direction are you planning to move in? Which direction are you going to go in? So most people would start with one set of objectives. We're looking to increase our customer base by 20% in the next 18 months. We're looking to double our workforce in the next 2 years. We're looking to increase revenue by 50% in the next 3 years. So some sort of quantified objective. Most of those would be around expansion. They would be about growth. You could have an objective. You could have an objective which is, we want to maintain market share in the next 2 years. So you could be following a hold strategy, basically. But what Michael Rayner talks about in his book, The Strategy Paradox, which, as I said earlier, is an excellent, excellent book. It's not necessarily an easy read, but I do think it's worthwhile. And I think particularly if you're feeling a little hamstrung by uncertainty at the moment, something like this will help to shift your thinking away from feeling that you can't make any decisions to deciding that actually there are probably a range of likely scenarios. Now, I'm not going to risk, with my crystal ball, I'm not going to risk any predictions as to what those are, because every business is different. Everybody's services are different. We're all going to have a very different take on this. But he would actually advocate that you look at a range of options, perhaps a range of extremes. You might look at worst case scenario, best case scenario, and a few in between. But in any case, there are a few things that you're going to need to do. So I'd have a go at doing that research first into what's going on around your business, because the facts aren't going to change. But based on what you find, both in terms of opportunities and threats, and also, based on the ambitions that you had 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, before Brexit, the plans that you had for your business, they may be completely unchanged. They may not need to change in any way. So developing a range of scenarios will help you not only to shift your thinking, to expand your thinking, it will help you to be much more ready when opportunities do come along, to seize them, to act on them. And I think it will also make you more secure against potential threats to your business or organization. So the 4 stages in strategic flexibility, which is the concept that Michael develops, are that, first of all, you anticipate. So this is your opportunity for some blue sky thinking. What would we do if? So you're building scenarios of the future. There is no set number. This is not a prescriptive process, but you may find that even if you had 2 alternative scenarios for the future, it might make you feel more secure. It might make you feel more confident about what's happening. So the next stage is formulating, because that's when your strategic development is going to come in. You're going to need to create strategies for those separate futures. And that will require going back over the research that you've done and seeing if there are any gaps in your research, any information that you're not really aware of, or perhaps even anything that you could interpret in another way. So developing those strategies. Developing a strategy also requires, through the accumulate phase, considering the resources that you're going to need. Do you have the skills that you need within your business at the moment, or you personally? Do you have the money, the finance? If not, where could you get it? Could you get investment? Could you perhaps buy another company, buy another organization? Could you sell your company to someone else? Could you merge with somebody else? So there are many, many other ways of raising finance for a business. What about the materials that you need, the machinery that you need? Do you need premises? Do you need computers? Do you need a manufacturing line? Is your business something that's run from a laptop and you could do it on a beach? So think about the resources that you need in order to put any of those strategies into effect. And then finally, operating. So some of those strategies might be things that you need to start putting into effect in advance of uncertainty, that you're already doing them in a small way. And this is the advice, I suppose, that Mr. Rayner gives in his book. But it's also something that I do in my own business. It's also something that I do with my clients as well. And I think it's probably something that you're already doing anyway. You might have what you consider to be a pet project. This is really taking that pet project and giving it teeth and muscles, making it much more viable. But I think maybe also going back and making sure that it's really robust. Because we're all looking to develop our businesses, to develop our organizations. We're all looking to expand them in some direction or other. But it's the process that you go through in order to make sure that, there are no surprises. If things turn out the way you expect them to, then this strategy is one that you know is going to work. So I would really recommend going and having a look at it. But also, the thing that I took from it was that it doesn't matter how big you are or how small you are, really. This is just as relevant for a one-person business as it is for a gigantic corporation. Because if you are adaptable, if you're flexible, but also that you have thought about the implications, but you've thought about the potential upside of different scenarios, then you are going to be much readier to put those into effect as and when circumstances change. Choosing your marketing tactics. So sooner or later, your strategies will need to be put into place. And the next stage of strategic development is creation of a plan, an operational plan. You need to be just about everywhere online nowadays in order to reach your customers. This is the customer journey nowadays. It isn't nice and linear, the way that we were all taught years ago. Awareness, interest, desire, action. Nowadays, people will expect to have maybe up to 12 different contacts with your brand, your business, your products and services, online, offline, before they select you. And interestingly, about 70% of the buyer's decision making is done online before they make that first contact with you. Now, on one side, this means that there's a lot of marketing that needs to be done for your business, your products and services. There's a lot of marketing that also needs to be done online. But it's also an excellent place to go and test the market. So if you are looking at alternative scenarios, you can not only go and see how people respond to the things that you put online, that you post online, you can also go and see how they feel about certain things. So one of the things that we cover in our workshops is social listening tools. It's a pretty fancy term, but it's basically how do you go online? How do you go on social media and gain the insights that you need to understand what customers are really after? What makes them click? What makes them tick? So this may be an opportunity for you to test the water on some of those ideas well ahead of any investment, either in, in your time, or in getting people in or developing skills. So you might be able to benefit from this convoluted customer journey, especially as all of this is self-published content, it's self-published posts. The social media is still, by and large, a free activity. So this might be something that you look at in a different way. Not only is it a sort of a set of actions that you need to carry out, but it's a chance to see how and where people bite. So if you've left a trail for them, are they following it? Are they interested in it? Because then that can help you to develop not only the confidence in a new product or service or a new market, but also those first customers. And something that I've seen a lot in my space, certainly in the sort of marketing training and online education, is that people will develop the market, they'll develop the customers, and they will research and survey the customers, and then they'll build the product or service for them. So it's an opportunity to flip things on its head. And again, if you're living in uncertain times, it would be really nice to know that you have a product up your sleeve that you're developing at the moment, and you already have your first customers for it. So, and maybe another way of looking at things. So traditional marketing tactics, still all perfectly valid, by the way. It hasn't all gone online. People will still expect to read about you in print. If you have a really nice article or a piece of editorial in a magazine or the papers about what you do, people are still really interested in it. They're still building that view of you and what you do. Trade shows are an excellent place to speak to people face to face, size up the competition, listen to the questions people ask. All these things are still really valid. So don't rule out those traditional marketing tactics. It's just that many of us in the digital and content marketing space have moved away from traditional advertising and things like print because of the cost attached. And that's all it is. There's a big cost attached, and it can take a very long time before you get any feedback. Whereas with digital marketing tactics, digital marketing tools, if you know where to look, you get the feedback very, very quickly. You get the analytics and the data very, very soon. So you know whether or not anybody's clicked, whether they've engaged, they've liked, they've shared, were they interested. And that works on the paid side with things like pay-per-click and display ads, as well as the sort of the free or the self-published content like social media posts, email marketing, for example. So again, if you're using something like digital marketing tools, there's a great deal that you can do that uses cloud-based software, freeware we would call it, and a lot of it is completely free of charge. So you don't need to spend a penny whilst you're starting and whilst you're testing a proposition, you're testing the market. So it isn't something where you need to go and book a big stand at a trade show. You could set up some social media accounts, you could set up a website, start doing some email marketing, and start building that market. So whether that's to your existing customer base or to a new customer base, you have all of these tools at your disposal. And these things are easy to learn to use. I mean, we take people through training and workshops every day of the week, and they are meant to be easy to use. That's the intention. It's meant to be user-friendly. Budgets, well, a lot of businesses have a zero budget for marketing. They might have a budget for personnel, but they don't actually invest in their marketing. But if you are intending to increase your revenue, if you're intending to create a new market for what you do or into a new marketplace, then it's best to expect to have to invest some money Even if what you're investing in is researching that market, perhaps even sort of visiting that market or exhibiting to them. So a kind of good rule of thumb would be 8 to 10% of projected turnover. However, depending on your profit margins, you may find that you need to flex that down a little. If you're working on sort of 20 to 30% profit margins, you may find that 8 to 10% is a little bit steep. But you might want to do a percentage of profit. But you do need to invest in marketing to grow a new market. I'm afraid you can't do it without. There needs to be some investment. Even if that investment is using free software, but the investment is your time and effort. So what value would you put on your time? So if you're setting time aside to develop new opportunities for your organization, for your business, what's the value of that time? Because that is your investment too. Okay. Finally, planning. So the 5 P's of planning are very simple. Planning prevents poor performance. It's as simple as that. Putting things into a plan. Now, this is rather busy, but this is basically a Gantt chart, an Excel spreadsheet. But putting things into a plan against time gives you a timeline to work to. It gives you deadlines. Some people are super motivated. They'll do stuff anyway. Others need a deadline in order to get things done. But it also gives you a chance to see what needs to take place, what needs to be done before something else can be done. So, for example, many of the clients I work with, they might be launching a new website. So a lot of things can't happen until the website goes live, but there's a lot of other activity that needs to take place before that website goes live as well. So what's the order of play for your project? What's the order of play for your marketing plan? And then finally, looking at the results, mining that data. So what gets measured matters is an old adage, but it's true. The important thing is to think about, your objectives. What did you set out to achieve? Was it that you wanted to maintain market share? You wanted to maintain current customer levels. So you're going to be looking to see that things have stayed pretty much the same. You might be looking to grow. You might be looking to attract a new type of customer or attract customers to a new product or service. All of these things can be measured, they can be monitored. And these are just some of the things that you might be looking at monitoring. Obviously, things like increased sales. You might be looking to increase your profit margin whilst maintaining your turnover. That could form part of a hold strategy in harder times, where you look at maintaining your current turnover, but you're looking at areas where you can cut costs, where you can become more profitable. But it does depend on what you want to achieve, okay? So finally, what shape is your strategy? Some of my clients love diagrams. I personally love diagrams, and there's nothing more satisfying than arrows and scribbles on a piece of paper. So for a lot of people, their strategy might be something that looks like a sort of a vertical arrow. It's a rocket, or it might be something that's pointing up and to the right. But really, strategy, a bit like a lot of things in life, is it's a kind of an iterative process. It goes round and round in a circle. Because if you're monitoring the outcome of your actions, then you need to be going back sometimes and tweaking that strategy, or seeing if your strategy is being carried out correctly. So what shape is your strategy? Well, my strategy is round. A lot of my clients' strategies are round as well. But I would say now I might have a few of those arrows doing other little circles around the main circle. Just some of those other opportunities that recent changes have unearthed for us. So quick recap. I hope you've enjoyed today's webinar. I hope we haven't gone too quickly through things. Obviously, it's a pretty massive topic. It's going to be a massive set of changes for us. I'm sure that there are going to be many positive changes that come out of Brexit. There will be things that are also negative too. But the only thing that we can change really is how do we look at that? How do we view that? And how do we step back from it and say, okay, I want my business to do really well in the next few years. I want my organization to survive and thrive. And getting creative in your thinking will help you to see where the opportunities lie. So 5 things you need to do before setting your strategy, your strategies, in fact. Think about the kind of future you want for your business. Some of you will be one-person businesses and you want to stay that way, and that's absolutely fine. You're going to be extremely flexible because it's just you. And so you may be able to find all sorts of opportunities, but don't rule out your training, your skills development, possibly even training in something that's complementary to what you do at the moment. It would give you a broader reach. Decide when you think or when you would like that future to start. So many of us might be thinking that everything's going to change in 2 years' time, 6 months' time, 5 years' time. It's changed already. It changed years ago. What do we feel that start date is? Because that's your timeline. This is the start. The start date for you is when you need to have your strategy developed and know what resources you're going to need in place. By mapping out alternatives beyond just a kind of back of a fag packet, what would you really need to do in order to make that strategy succeed? What would you need to have in place? How soon could you have those things in place? Will give you, I think, a better chance of doing well in the next few years than if you have a very fixed strategy and you're perhaps at risk of unexpected changes. Go out and research your 3 marketing environments. You're basically looking for any barriers, you're looking for threats, and you're looking for opportunities. And a lot of businesses can turn what looks like a threat into an opportunity. And I really hope that that's the case for you too. And then finally, the Ansoff matrix helps you think about which direction you want to move in or directions you might want to move in. So what if we did this? What would happen if we did that? And I think it's a nice, easy visual aid to use. You might also want to think about the timescales for those things. So if you're not a one-person business, then you need to get everybody else on board too, because this is going to require quite a bit of work. There's a fair amount of work involved in developing one marketing strategy. There will be even more work involved in developing some alternate strategies too. But I think it's something that is central to any business anyway, that the ability to look into the future and to put the resources in place, put the steps in place to make that future reality. It's essential for any business. So obviously get everybody else on board, tell people what you're looking to do. And it's funny, but the universe does have a way of delivering when we set our intentions out. So this is me. Now I work with businesses of all sizes, but many of my clients are small businesses, what I would call micro businesses. And I love working with businesses of all sizes too. So if you're interested in this topic, if you'd like some help to get started, then why don't you get in touch? We offer a free 2-hour consultation that can be done in person, or it can be done via Skype or over the phone. It can even be done in 2 parts. And I find it's a really good way to help people get unstuck in their thinking, but also to verbalize their goals, verbalize their dreams and objectives for the future. So if that sounds like something that might help you get this process kick-started, then please do get in touch. And if you would like to join any of our future webinars, please look out for invitations. You will automatically receive invitations as you've joined this webinar. We run live training sessions. We don't have a special offer today, but if you look out on social media, then you'll often find them. And our bite-sized online courses are launching this autumn. Now, thank you for listening. It means a great deal to us that you've taken time out to listen to this webinar. I hope you found it useful. But there's a little e-guide that you may find valuable as well. It's our top 21 marketing essentials. It's based on the stuff that we know to be true. It's based on our own experience and the experience of our customers. And it's the things that we know work as well. So I hope you'd find that useful, and we will pop a direct link to that in the follow-up email to this webinar. So thank you for your time today, and goodbye.